Hey everybody. Today I'm going to give you a quick primer on how to do animations in CSS. This is something that might not necessarily be useful for a lot of you right now, but is something that you can kind of experiment with and could add a little bit of interest to your design. Um, you see here on the right that I created this little animated face. Its mouth moves, it bounces up and down, and its eyes blink every now and again. Um, it's actually not that hard to do, but getting to know how the CSS part of the animation works can be a little bit of a pain. So something that you'll probably have to use the W3 Schools resource on animation after you watch this tutorial. It's got some good basics, including the names of the properties and what they do, and then some pretty simple examples like how this box moves back and forth. What an animation is it's kind of like a transition in that you're moving from one property to another. However, what you can do is you can set it to infinite, and you also have more control, and it doesn't have to just be on a state change. In other words, with transitions, when you hover over something, it goes from red to green, or from 100 pixels wide to 200 pixels wide, or something like that. This animated face, I don't have to interact with it at all. It's just kind of moving. And there will be cases where you want to do something like that. So I will give you a brief tutorial on how I did this. First of all, over here you've got my CSS, and or my HTML rather, and you can see that it's really simple. I've got blob body, which is the round face. I've got two eyes, the ID two eyes, and those are for the eyes. And as a div underneath that, a child div, I've got a div that's called class eyes, and ID left eye, and then right eye, and then there's another child div of the body, which is for the mouth, and a child of the mouth called tooth. And that's it, right? So not very many elements. And if you look at the CSS, this is what it looks like when it's not animated. If you look at the CSS, you see the blob body. All it is it's a cornflower blue square, 200 pixels by 200 pixels, and I put a border radius on it so that it would be round, right? Margin left and margin right auto, and to make it centered, and a margin top so that there's a little space at the top. Then for the eyes, I made them black with a 10 pixels wide, 20 pixels high, and a 25 pixel border radius so that it would appear like an oval. I positioned the left eye and right eye separately so that they would line up across from each other like that. On the mouth, I've got a height of 50, width of 110, also black. I positioned it, and then I used a border radius of 20, 20, 100, 100 so that it would have this sort of semicircular shape with a flat top. And then the tooth is just a white rectangle that's positioned as well. So really easy to make that, right? Now, as far as the animation goes, there's a few things you have to know. First of all, you have to do two different things. You'll have to add a call to the animation inside the part that you want animated. So why don't I start with the eyes? I want to make the eyes blink, right? So what I have to do is I have to say animation, and I'll spell it right this time, I promise. And then I get to name the animation something. So I'm going to call it blink. The name doesn't really matter. You can call it whatever you want, but it's kind of helpful to have a name that matches what you want it to do. So blink, and I'm going to show you over here the list of properties really quickly so that you can see. You've got animation name, the duration, so in other words, how long should the animation last? For instance, that blink animation, it only lasts, I think, a couple seconds, 3 seconds. The animation timing function is just like the transition timing function. You have linear, ease in, out, etc. You can experiment with those. Animation delay, so if you don't want the animation to start as soon as the page loads, you might want to delay it for a while. the animation iteration count. So in other words, how many times do you want the animation to replay? You can set it from any number from 0 to infinite. And that's what I was doing. My animation was infinite. Then there's animation direction. So if you don't specify one, it's normal, but you can have it go backwards, reverse, or you can have it go kind of back and forth. So if you're, for instance, animating something from the right side of your page to the left side of your page, what you can do is you can say, I want to alternate it so that it goes left to right and then back to left again. And it can just continue like that. And then animation play state specifies whether an animation is running or paused. You don't really have to worry about that because the only way to really activate that is with JavaScript, which we're not going to learn today anyway. So let me also show you that if you click on animation here, it shows you, like, you can put all of those things inside of one command. So for instance, here we've got animation, the name, my move, 5 seconds. What that says is that the animation should last for 5 seconds and it should be infinite. It should go on forever. Now you'll notice that there's also Webkit animation that basically looks the same thing. And the reason for that is because Safari and Chrome, they don't work with the regular animation. You have to add the browser prefix. So basically anytime you add one of these lines, you have to do a second one with the Webkit beforehand. Okay, so let's go back here. I've got my animation called blink, right? I want to have it last 4 seconds, and I want to use ease in out for the timing function, and I want it to continue indefinitely. So I'll say infinite. And then what I can do is I can copy this and then do the WebKit thing. So WebKit-animation, and it's totally the same. So that is part one. So now I've got the animation in, but I haven't really said what the animation does. I haven't really specified what blink does. In order to do that, I have to create what's called a keyframe. And how I do that is I do @-keyframes and then the name of the animation, in this case blink, right? And then I put my little curly brackets here, and then I specify what the animation is. So to give you an idea, I'm going to show you how I did the blink. So I do transform, and there are a bunch of different transforms on W3 Schools. Among them are rotate, translate, scale. There are a few other ones. In this case, I used the rotate function, and I'm rotating on X. Just really briefly, the way rotate works is if you just say rotate 90 degrees, it'll turn the image 90 degrees to the right, I suppose. And if you say rotate X, it rotates it along its X-axis. So if you draw a horizontal line right through the middle of whatever you're trying to rotate, it will rotate along that axis. It's kind of hard to explain, but if you were to take a coin or something, you can imagine that it would rotate 3 different ways. So you'll just have to take my word for it. So transform, and I did a rotate X 90 degrees. Note that there's no space between the X and the parentheses. You don't want a space there. And then that's going to be it. And I'm going to do the same thing with WebKit. So let's do a @WebKit, @-WebKit keyframes blink transform, and then I have to do WebKit transform rotate X 90 degrees. All right. Now, one other thing that you have to note is that it's kind of like a gradient. So what you'll want to do is say, for instance, that at 50% of the way through the animation, I want to do this. And you can actually specify multiple different things. So let's say I wanted the eyes to blink and I wanted them to jump or move to the left or something like that. I could say transform rotate X and then, you know, transform translate, you know, 10 pixels. Translate X or Y, 10 pixels. But I don't want to do that, so I'm going to get rid of it. In other words, you can change the color of the thing, you can change the location of the thing, you can do lots of different things with this. So I need to specify that 50% of the way through the animation, I want it to do this. So if I save it, and I come back here to my face. Now, you'll notice that it does appear to be blinking, but it's really slowly, whereas this one was blinking really quickly. The reason for that is because I've got it set to animate closing to 50% and then opening to when it finishes. So it animates until halfway and then it animates back. Let's say I wanted to do this at 90%. I'll save it. And you'll notice that it does it even slower, but the eyes open quickly, right? And to give you a really good idea, all right, let's do 99%. So now it takes a while to slow, and then animates open fast, right? So the percentage that you put this animation in will affect the way that it animates. So what I have to do in order to do that effect of it blinking really quickly is I have to say, up until about 93%, I want Webkit transform to be none. In other words, don't do anything for most of the time. And then at like, say, 95% or something like that, I want it to blink. So now it's just sitting there and then blink really fast, right? That is what I want. So that's an animation. It's really quite simple. I can give you an example of another one. From here on out, I'm only going to be doing the Webkit keyframe stuff because Webkit is all that affects Chrome, but you need to make sure that whenever you do any of this stuff, that you are copying both to the regular one and the Webkit version. So basically you need to do double work every time and make sure that you just have this. So if I save that, now that would work in other browsers too. All right, so I've got the eye blinking. Let's see, what else did I do? I made the body bounce, right? And the way I did that was with translate. So if I come back up here, I do the same thing I did last time. Animation, and I'm going to call the animation hop because it was hopping, right? Say it should do it every 6 seconds. I want it to use ease in, out, and I want it to go infinite. And once again, I copy this, and I do Webkit Animation. And now I have to create at keyframes hop. And actually, I'll just do it at Webkit keyframes and then hop. So you'll see there. And here's another one where I want it to go 94%. Up until 94%, I don't want it to do anything at all. Webkit transform none. And then at 96%, I want it to do Webkit transform translate Y. In other words, I want it to move up along the y-axis I'm going to have it move minus 15 pixels y. If you have a positive number here for translate, it's going to move down. If you have a negative number, it'll move up from its current location. All right, so that settles that. And if I save it, if I wait long enough, you'll see that it blinks and then it hops. Right. So that's 2. And the last one was the mouth, and I'm going to move down here to the mouth part. And once again, in the mouth here, I will do a Webkit animation. And for this one, I'll call it wobble, as the mouth kind of wobbles. And for this one, I want the animation to last, about 0.35 seconds, not very long. Ease in, out, infinite, and just copy and paste that there. And so here's at Webkit keyframes bobble, and I'll show you what happens when you change the percentage here a bit. Height 70 pixels. So all I'm doing is affecting the height of the mouth there, right? And let me save that. So right now you see the mouth's height is 50 pixels. This animation will change the height to 70 pixels. And there it goes. So it's moving up and down by 20 pixels. Now let's say I change this animation rate to 2 seconds rather than 0.35 seconds. Can save it and refresh. And it doesn't really seem that much. Oops, sorry, I changed the regular animation. If I change it to 2 seconds, you should see that the mouth opens and closes much more slowly because it's got 2 seconds to animate that change rather than 0.35 seconds. If I wanted to move really slowly, I'd change it to 20 seconds and save it, and you'll see that it hardly even really seems to be moving, right? So the amount of time that you give to the animation will affect how the animation looks. So maybe you want it to blink really fast. Then I would come up here and say, rather than have it blink in 4 seconds, I want it to blink in 1 second. That means it's going to be doing a whole lot of blinking. Oops. Once again, make sure that you pick the right one. For this, I have to make sure I pick Webkit. So save it, refresh. See, and now it's blinking all the time. Almost imperceptible, which is why I set it to 4 in the first place. So you've got some stuff to play with. As I said, it takes a lot of experimentation to get it right, and even then, you're just going to have to try changing a lot of this stuff. Check W3 schools. You should know that this animation setting, if you're going to use it rather than the list for each properties, there's actually a bunch of different things you can put in there. First is the animation name, in this case blink, then the animation duration, which is 4 seconds in this case, then the timing function, which I use ease in out, but you can use any of the timing functions, then animation delay. So if I said I wanted it to delay by, I'll do this one down here, the mouth. If I wanted it to delay by 10 seconds, then that would make it last 10 seconds. And then the iteration count. The animation direction doesn't go in this. Oh, it also does go in that. You can also say like animation duration and animation direction reverse, for instance. So just briefly, you see here, I've refreshed the page. I set a 10-second delay on animating the mouth. And if we wait 10 seconds, there it goes. Now it starts. So feel free to play with this. You don't have to turn anything in. You don't have to add anything to your own web page. This is something that, like, if you think it might be useful to you or you just want to have fun playing with it, go for it. Thanks a lot, guys.